Doctor schedules appointment with ex-wife and freezes when she shows up with twins who look just like him. Dr. Brian Mitchell was reviewing his schedule for the day when he saw a name that made his heart stop for a few seconds. Ashley Thompson was booked for 3 in the afternoon after 2 years of complete silence between them. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the office door at the appointed time. There she was, thinner than he remembered, holding 2 babies who couldn't have been more than a year old. What left him completely speechless was the striking resemblance between him and the 2 children. The shape of their faces, their noses, even the small birthmark on the chin that he'd had since childhood. "Hi, Brian," Ashley said softly, avoiding direct eye contact. "Ashley, He swallowed hard, trying to process what he was seeing. "Please come in." She stepped into the office, struggling to carry both babies. Brian instinctively reached out to help, but she pulled back slightly. "I've got it," she murmured, settling the children on the examination table. Brian closed the door slowly, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure she could hear it. 2 years. 2 years since she had walked out after that terrible fight on their wedding anniversary. "Who scheduled the appointment?" he asked, trying to keep his voice professional as he put on his lab coat. "Jennifer. She said you're the best pediatrician in the area and that—" Ashley trailed off, biting her lower lip like she always did when she was nervous. Jennifer Davis, the nurse who had worked with him for over 10 years and had always been fond of Ashley. Now it all made sense. Jennifer had insisted this appointment was urgent but hadn't given any details. "Are they having any issues?" Brian asked, moving closer to the table where the babies lay. "Breathing problems, since they were born. The last doctor said it was normal for preemies, but—" her voice wavered slightly. "They were born at 7 months." Brian felt a tightness in his chest. Premature. The children were clearly his, and they had struggled since birth, while he had been completely unaware of their existence. "May I examine them?" he asked, washing his hands at the office sink. Ashley simply nodded. Brian approached the babies, who watched him with curiosity. The resemblance was undeniable, their dark brown eyes just like his, the shape of their ears. Even the way one of them gripped his own foot was identical to what his mother had always said he did as a baby. "What are their names?" he asked, placing the stethoscope on one baby's chest. "Ethan and Noah," she replied quietly. Ethan and Noah. Names they had discussed when dreaming of having children, before everything fell apart between them. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Brian examined both babies carefully. Noah had a slight wheeze, while Ethan had a dry cough that was concerning. Both were underweight for their age. "How long have they been like this?" he asked, jotting down notes on the medical chart. "Since we left the hospital, we've seen 3 different pediatricians. They all say the same thing, that it's normal for preemies and will pass with time." "And you believe that?" Ashley looked directly at him for the first time since entering the office. "I'm their mother, Brian. I know when something isn't right." She had always had that sharp intuition. During their 4 years of marriage, Ashley had always noticed things that he, even as a doctor, took longer to see. Like when his mother was sick, but pretended she was fine, or when the building doorman was going through financial difficulties. "I need to run some more detailed tests," said Brian, turning his attention back to the babies. "A chest x-ray, some blood work." "I can't afford expensive tests right now," Ashley quickly interrupted. Brian stopped what he was doing and looked at her. The woman he had known always had stable finances. She worked as a physical therapist at a reputable clinic downtown. "You're not working at Dr. Richard's clinic anymore?" "I left when I found out I was pregnant, and then with 2 premature babies." She didn't finish the sentence, but Brian understood. Taking care of 2 premature babies with health issues alone made holding any regular job nearly impossible, and from the signs he was noticing, she had spent all her savings on appointments and medication. "The tests will be on me," he said, turning back to examine Ethan. "I don't want your charity, Brian." "It's not charity. It's medical responsibility." And paternal responsibility, he thought, but didn't say aloud. While examining Noah, Brian noticed a small scar on the baby's right arm, a scar that looked surgical. This scar, did they need surgery? Ashley closed her eyes for a moment before answering. Noah had an intestinal blockage when he was 3 months old. We were hospitalized for 15 days. 15 days. His son had undergone surgery, and he hadn't even known the boy existed. Brian felt a mix of anger, sadness, and guilt that nearly choked him. Why didn't you reach out to me? The question slipped out before he could stop himself. I tried, she replied softly. What do you mean, tried? I called Mercy Hospital 3 times. They always said you were in surgery or on duty. I sent messages. They were ignored. Brian thought back to the weeks before their separation. He really had been working non-stop, double shifts, emergency surgeries, medical conferences, but ignoring her messages that he wouldn't do. I never got any messages from you after you left. I sent them to your work messenger, the one you set up just for hospital emergencies. The work messenger. Brian rarely checked that number. It was only for urgent medical staff communications, and even then he preferred direct calls. Ashley, I hardly ever checked that messenger. I figured, she said with a bitterness he knew well. Brian finished examining the babies in silence. The tension in the air was almost palpable. There was so much they needed to talk about, so many explanations required, but right then, the babies were the priority. I'll order the tests and want to see them again next week, he said, writing up the requests. In the meantime, I'll prescribe a mild bronchodilator for Noah and a specific cough syrup for Ethan. Brian. Ashley hesitated before continuing. Why did you agree to see them? He stopped writing and looked at her. Because they're children who need medical care. Just that? Brian felt a lump in his throat. There was far more than just medical care involved, and they both knew it. For now, yes, just that. Ashley picked up Ethan while Brian helped with Noah. For a brief moment, their arms brushed as he handed the baby to her. It felt like an electric shock, the same sensation he'd always felt whenever he touched her during their years of marriage. Next week's appointment, she began. Tuesday, 2 p.m., Jennifer will schedule it. Thank you. Ashley headed for the door, but Brian called out. Ashley. She turned, both babies in her arms. They are... He couldn't finish the question. Your sons, she completed. What do you think, Brian? And with that answer, she walked out of the office, leaving Brian alone with 1,000 questions and one certainty. His life had completely changed in just one appointment. Brian stood still in the middle of the office for several minutes after she left. His hand still trembled slightly as he sat in the chair and looked at the test requests he had written. Ethan Mitchell Thompson, Noah Mitchell Thompson. They had his last name. He was a father to 2 boys he had no idea existed. The office door opened, and Jennifer walked in without knocking, as she always did when there were no patients. So, how did it go? She asked, trying to hide the anxiety in her voice. Jennifer, did you know? Know what? Don't pretend. You knew they were my sons. Jennifer sighed and sat in the chair across from his desk. I suspected. When she called asking for an urgent appointment with you specifically and mentioned they were twins with breathing problems. Brian, I've known her for years. I can tell when she's desperate. And you didn't think you should tell me? And would you have agreed to see her if you'd known? Brian paused to think. He probably would have refused. He still held on to resentment from their separation, from how she had disappeared without explanation, blocking all contact. Maybe not, he admitted. Exactly. So now what? What are you going to do? I don't know. First, I need to make sure they're okay. The tests will show if there's anything more serious. Brian, they're your sons. Anyone who looks at the 3 of you together will see it immediately. I know, but I need to process all this. 2 years, Jennifer. 2 years they've existed and I knew nothing. Jennifer stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. She was alone, Brian. A woman pregnant with twins, working until she couldn't anymore. After they were born, it was months in the hospital, appointments, expensive medications. She sold her car, moved to a smaller apartment. How do you know all this? Because I've run into her a few times at the market near my place. She lives 3 blocks from me now. And every time I see her, she's with the boys alone, carrying heavy bags, trying to handle everything. Brian felt a pang of guilt. While he was living his normal life, working, dating other people, she was raising 2 children alone, children who were his too. Does Rebecca know about today? Jennifer asked. Rebecca, his current girlfriend of 3 months, a lawyer he'd met at a medical conference who was pushing to make their relationship official. No. And she doesn't need to know for now. Brian, Jennifer, please. I need time to figure this out. The nurse nodded and left the office, leaving him alone again. Brian spent the rest of the afternoon distracted during his other appointments. His mind kept returning to the image of Ashley holding the 2 babies, to the striking resemblance between him and the children, to how she had avoided his gaze for most of the appointment. When he got home that night, Rebecca was already there. She had keys to his apartment and often stayed late, especially on days he worked. How was your day? She asked, serving the dinner she had prepared. Normal, routine appointments. You're acting strange. Did something happen? Brian hesitated. Rebecca was a smart and perceptive woman. It would be hard to hide anything from her for long. Just tired. It was a long day. She moved closer and wrapped her arms around his neck. How about we relax a little? She suggested, kissing his neck. But Brian couldn't focus on anything except the baby's eyes looking at him that afternoon. Eyes that were identical to his. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm really tired today. She stepped back, visibly frustrated. Brian, you've been distant lately. Are you sure everything's okay between us? It is. It's just a phase. A phase that started after you agreed to work on Saturdays too? Brian wasn't working on Saturdays. In recent weeks, he'd begun lying about some commitments to have time alone. The pressure Rebecca put on making their relationship official was making him uncomfortable. Rebecca, can we talk about this tomorrow? I'm really exhausted. She sighed and grabbed her purse. Fine. But Brian, we need to have a serious talk about our future. I can't stay indefinitely in a relationship going nowhere. After she left, Brian stood alone in the apartment, staring at his phone. He had Ashley's personal messenger number memorized, even after 2 years. Many times he'd started typing messages but always deleted them before sending. This time he typed, Ashley, we need to talk about all this. Not just about the boys, but about us too. Please give me a chance to explain some things. But like all the other times, he deleted the message before sending. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Brian woke to a call from Jennifer at 6 a.m. Brian, you need to come to Mercy Hospital now. It's about Ashley. His heart raced. What happened? Are the babies okay? They're in pediatric emergency. One of the babies had a respiratory crisis overnight. Brian dressed quickly and left without even having coffee. On the way to the hospital, his mind conjured the worst possible scenarios. What if it was serious? What if he lost the chance to get to know his sons better? When he arrived at pediatric emergency, he found Ashley sitting in a hallway chair, holding Ethan in her arms. Noah was on an examination table being checked by Dr. Michael, a fellow pediatrician. How is he? Brian asked, approaching the table. Severe bronchospasm, Dr. Michael replied. We've already given him a bronchodilator and corticosteroid. He's stable but needs observation for a few hours. Brian looked at Ashley. She was pale, with deep dark circles, likely up all night. When did the crisis start? He asked. At 2 in the morning, he couldn't breathe properly, she answered, her voice breaking. I didn't know whether to call you or bring him straight to the hospital. You can always call me when it's about them. Anytime. Dr. Michael interrupted. Brian, can I speak with you a moment? They stepped a few feet from the table. This child has a history of prematurity and recurring respiratory issues. Today's episode was more severe than it should be for a baby his age. He may need evaluation by a pediatric pulmonologist. I'd already thought of that. I was scheduling more detailed tests. And the mother... She said you're the boy's pediatrician now? It's complicated, Michael. I imagine. But these children need very close follow-up, and the mother seems at her stress limit. Brian returned to the table where Noah slept with an oxygen mask. Ashley still held Ethan, who also looked drowsy. Did you get any sleep last night? He asked quietly. No. When he started struggling, I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Ashley, why didn't you call me right away? Because... She hesitated. Because I didn't want to seem like I was using you. That I only showed up in your life again because I need medical help for them. And isn't that why? It's not just that, she replied, avoiding his gaze. Brian felt something stir in his chest, a mix of hope and fear he hadn't felt in a long time. I need to ask you something, he said, checking to make sure no one was listening. Why didn't you tell me about the pregnancy? Because I found out a week after I left, and at that point, you'd made it very clear your career was more important than our marriage. That's not true, isn't it? Brian, you missed our anniversary because you took an extra shift. Our anniversary. After I'd spent weeks planning that dinner, Brian remembered that day. Doctor. Richard had called in a panic because the pediatrician on duty had gotten sick and there was no one to cover. It was an emergency, but now he understood her point. I thought you'd understand it was an emergency. And I thought after 4 years of marriage I'd be a priority at least once. Noah stirred on the examination table and opened his eyes. Brian instinctively reached out and touched the baby's face. Noah looked at him curiously, without fear. Hey, champ, Brian murmured. Feeling better? He likes you, Ashley observed. He's usually wary of strangers. I'm not a stranger. I'm his father. It was the first time Brian had said those words aloud, and he felt an emotional impact he hadn't expected. Yes, you are, Ashley agreed quietly. Ethan began fussing in her arms. Brian held out his hands. May I? Ashley hesitated for a second, but handed the baby over. Ethan settled immediately, nestling against Brian's chest as if he'd known him forever. He's hungry, Ashley said, pulling a bottle from the diaper bag. I'll feed him, Brian offered. As he fed Ethan, Brian felt a strange sense of wholeness, as if this moment were natural, as if he'd always known he'd be the father of these 2 boys. Ashley, he said without taking his eyes off Ethan, we need to talk. About everything. About the past, the present, how we'll raise them together. Together. They're my sons too. I want to be part of their lives. What about Rebecca? How will she react when she finds out you have 2 kids with your ex-wife? Brian stopped feeding Ethan and looked at Ashley. How do you know about Rebecca? Brian, you live in the same neighborhood I used to. We have mutual friends. I know you've been together a few months. Ashley, you don't owe me an explanation. You have every right to move on. I'm just being realistic about the situation. The situation changed completely yesterday when you walked into my office with them. Doctor, Michael approached again. Noah's cleared to go, but I want to see him again if there's any change in his breathing. Thanks, Michael. Brian helped Ashley gather the baby's things. As they left Mercy Hospital, an idea struck him. Ashley, do you have a way home? I'll call a cab. I'll drive you. And then, maybe we could talk, grab some coffee while they nap. She studied him for a long moment before answering. Okay, but just a quick coffee. In the car, Brian watched the babies in the rearview mirror. They slept soundly in their car seats, breathing easy after the medication. They're beautiful babies, he said. They look like you when you were little. Your mom showed me pictures once. My mom, does she know about them? No. I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone in your family. Why? Because I was afraid you'd try to take them from me. Brian stopped at a red light and turned to look at her. Ashley, it would never ever cross my mind to take our children away from you. You're an amazing mother. Anyone can see that. How would you know? You don't see me taking care of them. Because I know you. I always knew you'd be a wonderful mother. The light turned green, and they continued their drive in silence. When they arrived at the building where Ashley lived, Brian was surprised. It was much simpler than where she used to live before. Is this it? Apartment 203. It's not big, but it works for the three of us. Brian helped carry the babies and their things up to the apartment. It was indeed small, but it was tidy and clean. Toys were scattered around the living room, and a double crib stood in the corner of the bedroom. Coffee? Ashley offered, placing the babies in the crib. Please. While she prepared the coffee, Brian looked around the apartment. There were photos of the babies at different stages. At Mercy Hospital when they were born, during their first checkups, sleeping, playing. None of him. When were they born? He asked. March 15th. Early morning. Noah at 2:15, Ethan at 2:27. How was it? The delivery? Ashley brought 2 cups of coffee and sat on the couch beside him. Hard. They were born at 7.5 months. Noah weighed 3.9 pounds, Ethan 3.7. We spent 2 months at the hospital. 2 months? Breathing problems, trouble gaining weight, a few infections. It was really tough. Brian pictured Ashley alone at the hospital, caring for 2 premature babies, facing all that fear and anguish with no one to lean on. Ashley, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there, that I didn't know, that I couldn't help. You didn't know, it's not your fault. But it is my fault for prioritizing work so much that you felt you had to leave. Brian, let's not go back to that now. We have to go back to it. Otherwise, we'll never move forward. Ashley set her coffee cup down and sighed. Fine, let's talk, but no fighting. Not here, not with them sleeping right there. No fighting, just honesty. Okay. Then, be honest with me. Did you love me when we were married? The question caught Brian off guard. Of course I did. How can you even ask that? Because you never showed it. The last 2 years of our marriage, you came home late, left early, worked weekends. When you were home, you were always on the phone with colleagues or studying. I was building my career, and I was building our life together, alone. Brian felt a tightness in his chest. She was right. In the last years of their marriage, he had focused so much on his career that he'd neglected their relationship. I didn't realize I was doing that to you. Or you didn't want to realize. Ashley, I truly didn't. I thought you understood it was temporary, that once I was more established in my career, we'd have more time together. But you were never established enough. There was always another goal, another course, another shift. Brian knew she was right. There was always something more he wanted professionally. And you? Was it easy starting over alone? Easy? Ashley laughed bitterly. Brian, I found out I was pregnant a week after I left. Pregnant with twins. I had morning sickness for 4 months, worked until the 7th month even though I felt awful. When they were born, I spent 2 months going back and forth to the hospital every day. Then I had to care for 2 preemies alone, without being able to work. I sold my car to pay for their medicine and doctor visits. Why didn't you reach out to me? Even if you were angry, even if you were hurt, you should have. I did. You said you sent messages on my work messenger. Anything else? I called your mother when they were born. Brian straightened up on the couch. You called my mother? I did. I told her I'd had the babies and that they were her grandchildren. I asked her to talk to you. My mother never mentioned anything about this to me. Because I asked her not to. I said if you wanted to find me, you'd do it on your own. Brian stayed silent for a few minutes, processing this information. His mother had known he had 2 children and never told him. Ashley, this doesn't make sense. Why would you tell my mother and ask her not to tell me? Because I wanted you to come looking for me because you missed me, not because you felt obligated because of the babies. But I did miss you, so much. Did you really? I did. Every night when I came home and you weren't there. Every morning when I woke up and you weren't by my side. I missed you all the time. Then why didn't you ever try to find me? Because I thought you were better off without me. You left so determined, blocked my number, didn't reply to any of the emails I sent. You sent emails? Several. For the first 3 months after you left. I changed my email when I moved out. Made a new account. They stared at each other in silence, realizing there had been so many misunderstandings between them, attempts at communication that never reached their destination, wounded pride on both sides, decisions made based on incomplete information. Noah started crying in the crib, interrupting the conversation. "He must be hungry," Ashley said, standing up. "Can I hold him?" "Of course." Brian picked up Noah and brought him to the living room while Ashley prepared the bottle. The baby stopped crying immediately and stared at Brian's face with curiosity. "Hi, son," Brian murmured, feeling a rush of emotion at saying the word. "He recognizes you," Ashley observed, returning with the bottle. "You think so?" "I'm sure. Babies sense these things." As Brian fed Noah, Ethan woke up and began stirring in the crib. Ashley picked him up and sat beside Brian on the couch. "Brian, what do you expect to happen now?" she asked softly. "Honestly, I don't know. Yesterday morning I woke up thinking about my normal work routine. Today I wake up knowing I'm the father of 2 boys and that my life will never be the same." "What about Rebecca?" "I'll talk to her. She deserves to know the truth." "And what if she doesn't accept the situation?" Brian looked down at Noah, who had finished the bottle and was now playing with the buttons on his shirt. "Then she's not the right person to be in my life right now." "Brian." "Ashley, these boys are my sons. I won't give them up for anyone, and I won't accept anyone treating them poorly or seeing them as obstacles. Even if that means being alone, I won't be alone. I'll have the 3 of you." "You don't have me, Brian. We're just their parents." "That doesn't mean we're back together." "I know, but it means we'll always have a connection. And who knows, you'll with time." "No, don't go there. We can't set unrealistic expectations. That would be bad for everyone, especially for them." Brian knew she was right, but he couldn't help feeling hope. Being there with her and the babies felt too natural to be just a coincidence. "Can I visit them?" he asked. "Of course. You're their father." "And can I help financially?" "I could use the help," she admitted. "I don't have steady income right now and their expenses are high. I'll set up an account for you, and I want to add them to my health insurance." "Brian, that will show up on your plan. Rebecca will find out." "I told you, I'll talk to her." Noah was trying to grab the stethoscope still hanging around Brian's neck. Brian took it off and let the baby play with it. "He's going to be a doctor," Ashley joked. "Or, she's going to be a doctor," Brian corrected, glancing at Ethan. "So they can be whatever they want to be. Brian, I want you to know that I don't expect anything from you, except for you to be a good father to them. I don't want to complicate your life or interfere in your relationships. You've already complicated my life, in the best possible way." Ashley smiled for the first time since she had arrived at his office the day before. A small but genuine smile. "I need to go," said Brian, glancing at his watch. "I have appointments this afternoon." "Of course." Brian handed Noah to Ashley and stood up. "Can I come back tomorrow, after work?" "You can, but let me know first. Sometimes I take them out for a walk in Central Park. I'll call before I come." At the apartment door, Brian hesitated. "Ashley?" "Yes?" "Thank you for taking such good care of them alone, and thank you for giving me the chance to be their father now. They need their father, and despite everything that happened between us, I always knew you'd be a good dad." Brian left the apartment with a mix of emotions he couldn't name. Happiness at discovering he was a father, guilt for not being there when Ashley and the babies needed him most, hope that maybe they could build something together, even if it was just a partnership for the kids, and fear that everything might go wrong again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. On his way back to Mercy Hospital, Brian called Jennifer. "How was she?" Jennifer asked before he could even greet her. "Tired, worried, but strong. She's always been strong." "And you? How are you handling all this?" "Confused, emotional, scared." "What about Rebecca?" "I'll talk to her tonight." "Brian, be careful. She won't take this well." "I know, but I can't hide this from her." "And you can't hide her from yourself either. What do you mean?" I mean, if you're going to include these children in your life, Rebecca will have to deal with Ashley. And from the way you talked about her just now, I'm not sure you've completely moved on from your marriage. Jennifer had always been too direct, but this time she'd hit a nerve. Brian really didn't know if he'd fully moved on from Ashley. When he arrived at the hospital, he tried to focus on his afternoon appointments, but it was impossible. In every baby he examined, he saw Ethan or Noah's face. In every worried mother, he saw Ashley going through hardships alone. At 6 in the evening, as he was discharging his last patient of the day, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Brian? It's Ashley. I'm calling from a borrowed phone. Mine is dead. Did something happen? Are the boys okay? They're fine, but I need to talk to you. It's about your mother. My mother? She's here. She showed up an hour ago saying she heard from the neighbors that I was living here. Brian, she knows about the boys. Brian closed his eyes. His mother had known for months that he had 2 sons and never told him. And now she'd decided to show up in Ashley's life without warning anyone. Did she say anything? Is she causing trouble? No. Actually, she's helping me bathe them. But I think you should come here. I'm leaving the hospital now. Brian drove to Ashley's apartment with his heart racing. When he arrived, he found the door slightly open. He walked in and heard voices coming from the bathroom. Grandma Barbara, look how clean he is, Ashley's voice said. What a beautiful baby. Just like Brian when he was little, his mother replied. Brian approached the bathroom door and saw a scene that moved him deeply. His mother was helping Ashley bathe Noah while Ethan waited in the bassinet beside the tub. Mom, he called. Barbara Mitchell turned and looked at him with a mix of joy and guilt on her face. Hi, son. Can I ask what you're doing here? Meeting my grandchildren. Mom, we need to talk. I know, but first, let's finish bathing them. Brian watched his mother interacting with the babies. She was radiant with a smile he hadn't seen in a long time. Barbara had always dreamed of being a grandmother, and now that dream was coming true. Once the babies were clean and in their pajamas, the 3 adults sat in the living room while Ethan and Noah played on the playmat with some toys. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Brian asked directly. Because Ashley asked me not to. But they're my children. I had the right to know. You did. But she also had the right to decide when and how to tell you. Brian looked at Ashley, who was playing with Ethan on the floor. Ashley, can you explain this to me? Brian, when I called your mom, I was panicking. I had just left Mercy Hospital with 2 premature babies and didn't know how to care for them alone. I needed someone from your family to know they existed in case something happened to me. But why ask her not to tell me? Because I was hurt, and because I wanted you to come to me out of love, not obligation. Barbara intervened. Brian, you have no idea how many times I wanted to call and tell you everything, but I respected her decision. And when I started dating Rebecca, didn't you think you should have told me then? I did, but it wasn't my decision to make. Brian ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Look, I understand you thought you were doing what was best, but I lost 2 years of my children's lives, 2 years I'll never get back. Brian? Ashley moved closer to him on the couch. I know it was selfish of me. I know you had the right to know, but at the time I was hurt and confused. And then, after they were born and I saw how hard it was to care for them alone, I was afraid you'd try to take them from me. Ashley, I would never take our children from you. I know that now. But back then, I was unsure about everything. Barbara picked up Noah and stood. You 2 need to talk alone. I'll take the boys to their room and stay with them for a while. When they were alone, Brian and Ashley sat in silence for a moment. Ashley, I need to understand one thing. Do you still love me? The question caught her off guard. Brian, please be honest with me. It's not that simple. Yes or no? I never stopped loving you, but that doesn't mean we should get back together. Brian's heart raced. Why not? Because the problems that drove us apart haven't gone away. You're still a workaholic. I still need attention and affection. Only now, we have 2 kids who need both parents at their best. Together or apart? What if I changed? What if I proved I can balance work and family? Brian, you can't change for me or the boys. You have to change for yourself, and real change takes time. Then give me that time. What do you mean? Let me prove I can be a present father and a better partner. I'm not asking to move back in right now, just a chance. Ashley was silent for a long moment. Brian, I can't afford to get hurt again. Now I have 2 children to think about. I won't hurt you. Not again. You can't promise that. I can try. Barbara returned to the living room, carrying both babies. They're sleepy. I think it's time for their nighttime bottle. I'll make it, Brian offered. You know how to prepare a bottle? Ashley asked, surprised. No, but I can learn. In the kitchen, Brian watched Ashley prepare the bottles. Every movement was automatic, the result of months of practice. Is it hard? He asked. What? Taking care of them alone. A lot, especially when they get sick at the same time, or when one is sleeping and the other is crying, or when I need to go out and have no one to leave them with. And your mother, doesn't she help? My mother is upstate taking care of my grandmother. She only comes here once a month. And friends? Most drifted away when they found out I was pregnant and divorced. Apparently, a pregnant single woman scares some people. Brian felt another pang of guilt. While he maintained his normal social life, Ashley had lost most of her friends and support network. Ashley, from now on, you're not alone anymore. Even if we don't get back together, I'll share all the responsibilities with you. Brian, that's a huge responsibility. Being a father isn't just showing up for the good moments. It's waking up in the middle of the night when they have a fever. It's changing dirty diapers. It's putting up with crying for no apparent reason. It's giving up plans to stay with them when they're sick. I know, and I want to do all of that. And I want to do all. Even knowing it'll completely change your routine. My routine already changed since yesterday when you walked into my office. They returned to the room where Barbara was softly singing to the babies. Brian, you need to tell Rebecca, said Barbara. I'll tell her tonight. And how do you think she'll react? Asked Ashley. Probably not well, but she deserves to know the truth. What if she gives you an ultimatum, choosing between her and the boys? I've already chosen the boys. Barbara smiled at her son's response. I'm proud of you, Brian. You're making the right decisions. Brian picked up Ethan and gave him the bottle. The baby stared at him intently while drinking, as if memorizing his father's face. He knows you're his dad, observed Barbara. How can you be so sure? Because he's calm with you. Ethan usually gets fussy with strangers. And Noah? Noah is more sociable. He smiles at anyone, but with you he's more relaxed, more. After the babies finished their bottles, Brian helped put them in the crib. It was an intimate family moment he'd never experienced before. Good night, champs, he murmured, kissing each one's forehead. Barbara said goodbye soon after, promising to return over the weekend to help with the boys. As Brian was leaving, Ashley called out, Brian. Yes? Thank you for coming today, and for talking to your mom without arguing. Don't mention it. They're my kids too. And Brian? Yes? Good luck with Rebecca. Brian returned home with his mind full of thoughts. How could he tell Rebecca he'd just found out he was the father of twins? How could he explain he wanted to be actively involved in their lives? How could he say this meant regularly seeing his ex-wife? When he got home, Rebecca was already there making dinner. Hi, honey. How was your day? She asked, kissing his cheek. Rebecca, we need to talk. About what? She asked, noticing his serious tone. About something that happened, something that will change our relationship. Rebecca turned off the stove and faced him fully. Brian, you're scaring me. What happened? Yesterday, I found out I'm a father. What do you mean you found out you're a father? Did you get someone pregnant? No, I've been a father for almost 2 years and didn't know. Rebecca sank heavily into a kitchen chair. Brian, are you talking about Ashley? How did you know? Because you've said her name several times in your sleep these past weeks, and because you've been acting strange lately. Brian sat beside her at the kitchen table. Rebecca, yesterday Ashley showed up at my office with twin boys. They're my sons. Are you sure? Absolutely, they look just like me. And the dates match the last time we were together before the separation. So now, what do you plan to do? I want to be part of their lives. I want to be a present father. And that means interacting with your ex-wife regularly. Yes, it means that. Rebecca fell silent for a few minutes, processing the information. Brian, do you still love her? Rebecca, answer me. Do you still love Ashley? Brian hesitated. He didn't want to hurt Rebecca, but he couldn't lie either. I have mixed feelings about her, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. Yes, it does, Brian. It means exactly that. Rebecca, I need your understanding right now. And I need a boyfriend who loves me completely, not someone who's still in love with his ex-wife. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Brian, you have 2 children with the woman you still love. There's no room for me in this story. Rebecca, please. No, Brian. I won't fight for your feelings. I won't compete with the mother of your children. Rebecca stood up and began gathering her things scattered around the apartment. You don't have to leave now. Yes, I do. The longer I stay, the harder it'll be. Rebecca, you're an amazing person. You deserve someone who loves you completely. I know, and you deserve to have your family back. I don't know if we'll get back together. You will. Maybe not now, but you will. Anyone who sees the 2 of you together can tell. How can you know? You've never seen us together. I saw photos of you on your computer, and I heard how you talked about her when you didn't realize it. It was always clear you hadn't completely moved on. Rebecca picked up her purse and headed for the door. Brian, take good care of those babies, and be honest with Ashley about your feelings. Rebecca, I'm sorry. Me too. But this is for the best. After she left, Brian stood alone in the apartment, staring at the photos of the babies he'd taken with his phone that day. His life had completely changed in 48 hours. He grabbed his phone and sent a message to Ashley. I talked to Rebecca. We broke up. Now I can focus entirely on the boys. The reply came a few minutes later. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for choosing them. Brian stared at the message for a long time before responding. It wasn't a hard choice. They're my children, and you've always been the most important woman in my life. Ashley didn't reply to that message. The next morning, Brian woke up with a strange feeling of freedom and responsibility at the same time. He was free to make his own decisions without having to consider Rebecca's feelings. But now he had the responsibility of being a father to 2 babies he barely knew. At Mercy Hospital, Jennifer immediately noticed something had changed. How did the talk with Rebecca go? We broke up. How are you feeling? Confused. Sad for Rebecca because she didn't deserve this, but also relieved. Relieved? I won't have to hide anything anymore. I can publicly acknowledge that I'm the boy's father. And Ashley? We're still figuring out how it'll work, but last night I realized something. What? That I never stopped loving her, and that I want to try to win my family back. Jennifer smiled. I already knew that. It took you 2 years to figure it out. During his appointments that day, Brian couldn't fully concentrate. His mind kept drifting back to Ashley and the babies. How were they? Did they need anything? Was Noah breathing okay after the episode the day before? At lunchtime, he called Ashley. Hi, Brian. Hi. How are they? Good. Noah's breathing normally. Ethan woke up in a good mood. And you, how are you? Tired, but okay. Ashley, can I come over tonight? I'd like to see the boys. Of course. What time? About 7? Sounds good. I'll make dinner. Do you still like lasagna? Brian smiled. Lasagna had always been his favorite, and Ashley made the best he'd ever tasted. I do. But you don't have to go to the trouble. It's no trouble. It's nice to cook for someone other than myself. When Brian arrived at Ashley's apartment that evening, she answered the door with Ethan in her arms. The baby grinned at the sight of him, reaching out his little arms. I think he missed you, Ashley remarked, handing Ethan to Brian. I missed him too. Both of them. Noah was in his crib on his tummy, trying to crawl. When he spotted Brian, he started babbling excitedly. He's trying to talk to you, Ashley said. What's he trying to say? Probably Daddy. The word made Brian's heart race. Daddy. He was a father. There were two tiny people in the world who depended on him completely. During dinner, Brian fed Noah while Ashley took care of Ethan. It was a domestic scene that felt natural, as if they'd always done this together. Ashley, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you seeing anyone? Brian, it's a fair question. If you're dating, I need to know so we can figure out how to split time with the boys. I'm not seeing anyone, and you know very well that's not why you're asking. Then why do you think I'm asking? Because you want to know if you have a chance to win me back. Brian stopped feeding Noah and looked straight at Ashley. Do I? Brian, we already talked about this yesterday. We did, but things have changed since yesterday. What's changed? I broke up with Rebecca. Now I can focus entirely on the three of you. You can't make decisions about your love life based on the boys. It's not about them. It's about realizing I never stopped loving you. Ashley set her spoon down and sighed. Brian, please don't make this complicated. I'm not. I'm being honest about my feelings. And I'm being honest about my fears. What fears? Fear that you'll change your mind in a few months when you realize how hard parenting is. Fear that you'll feel overwhelmed and put work first again. Fear that I'll fall for you all over again and you'll leave me once more. Brian reached out and touched her face. Ashley, I won't leave you. Not again. You can't promise that. I can try. Trying isn't enough for me. I need certainty. Then give me the chance to give you that certainty. Noah started fussing in Brian's lap, interrupting the conversation. Ashley stood to grab a diaper. He needs changing. Brian followed her to the bedroom and watched as she changed Noah's diaper. Can I learn how to do this? Of course, it's easier than it looks. Ashley guided Brian step by step through changing Noah's diaper. It was an intimate moment, sharing the care of their son. There. You did well for your first time, Ashley praised. What now? Now they'll sleep. It's the hardest part of the day. Why? Because they don't sleep at the same time. One sleeps, the other wakes up. And when one stirs, it wakes the other. How do you get any rest? I barely sleep 3 hours straight since they were born. Brian felt another pang of guilt, imagining Ashley handling sleepless nights alone all these months. Starting tonight, I'll come over some nights to help. Brian, you have early shifts. You can't go without sleep. And you can? I don't have a choice. Now you do. You have me. Ashley put Ethan in his crib and turned to face Brian. You make it sound easy, but it's not. Being a father isn't just showing up when you feel like playing with them. It's being there when they're sick, when they're crying for no reason, when you're exhausted and just want to sleep. I know. And I want to be there for all those moments. Even knowing it'll interfere with your work? I'll find a way to balance things. How? You've always worked 12-hour days. I'll cut back on my hours. Brian, you love your job. I do, but I love the three of you more. Noah started crying in his crib. Brian instinctively picked him up. Shh, it's okay, son, he murmured, gently rocking Noah. He stops crying when you talk, Ashley observed, surprised. Do you think he recognizes my voice? Maybe. Or maybe he senses you're calm. Ethan began fussing in his crib too. Ashley picked him up and tried to soothe him, but he kept crying. They're tired but don't want to sleep, she explained. What can I do to help? You can walk around the house with Noah while I walk with Ethan. Sometimes the movement calms them. Brian paced the small living room holding Noah, softly humming a song his mother used to sing to him as a child. Slowly, Noah began to relax. It's working, Ashley whispered. Ethan's calming down too. They walked around the house for nearly an hour until both babies were completely asleep. When they finally managed to lay them down in their cribs without waking them, Ashley collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Does this happen every night? Brian asked, sitting beside her. Almost every night. Some nights are worse. How do you handle this alone? Because I have no choice. They need me. Brian looked at Ashley. She was clearly worn out, with deep dark circles and a paleness that worried him. Ashley, when was the last time you did something for yourself? What do you mean? Went out with friends? Visited the hair salon? Saw a movie? Anything that didn't involve taking care of the boys? I don't remember. That's not right. You need to take care of yourself too. Brian, I have 2 one-year-olds. I don't have time to think about myself. Now you do. I'll help. How? What if you go out on Saturday to do something for yourself and I stay with them? You don't know how to take care of them alone. I can learn, and if there's an emergency, I'll call you. Ashley looked at him with an expression mixing hope and fear. Brian, taking care of them alone for a few hours isn't easy. They need to eat every 3 hours, diapers need constant changing, they never stay still. Ashley, I'm a pediatrician. I work with kids every day. Working with kids is different from raising your own. Then I'll learn by raising my own. Ashley was silent for a moment. Okay, Saturday afternoon, I'll go out for a few hours. Where will you go? I don't know. Maybe the mall, maybe the beauty salon. It doesn't matter. I just want to leave without a stroller, without a diaper bag, without worrying if they're okay. Then it's settled. Brian stayed another hour at the apartment, helping Ashley prepare for the next day. As he was leaving, she called out, Brian? Yes? Thank you for doing this, for wanting to be part of their lives. Thank you for giving me the chance. And Brian? Yes? About us? Let's take it slow, okay? One step at a time. Brian smiled. It was the first time she'd shown openness to the possibility of them getting back together. Slow, one step at a time. On Saturday, Brian arrived at Ashley's apartment at 2 in the afternoon. She had everything ready, bottles in the fridge, diapers set aside, clean clothes, toys organized. They just had lunch and are a little sleepy. They'll probably nap soon, she explained. Okay, what if they cry? First check if their diaper is dirty. If they don't settle, offer water. If they keep crying, pick them up and walk around the house. And if none of that works, call me. Brian had never seen Ashley so anxious. Ashley, everything will be fine. Trust me. I'm trying. How long will you be gone? 3, maybe 4 hours at most. Enjoy every minute. After Ashley left, Brian was alone with Ethan and Noah for the first time. The babies stared at him curiously, as if they knew this was a new situation. So boys, what do you want to do? He asked. Noah babbled something that sounded like Dada, making Brian's heart race. That's right, champ. I'm your daddy. The first 2 hours went smoothly. The babies slept for an hour, and when they woke up, Brian managed to feed them and change their diapers without any trouble. But by the 3rd hour, Ethan started crying for no apparent reason. Brian checked his diaper, offered water, held him, but nothing worked. Noah, woken by his brother's cries, began whimpering too. Brian tried everything, walking around the house, humming, playing with them, but both babies remained fussy and crying. Just as he was about to call Ashley in desperation, Brian remembered something. His mother always said babies sense adults' nervousness. He took a deep breath, calmed himself, and sat on the couch with both babies in his arms. It's okay, boys, Daddy's here. Missing Mommy? Me too, he said softly. Slowly, the babies began to settle. Ethan stopped crying first, followed by Noah. Within minutes, both were relaxed in their father's arms. When Ashley came home 4 hours later, she found Brian asleep on the couch with both babies dozing on his chest. Brian, she whispered. He opened his eyes slowly, careful not to wake the babies. Hi, how was your outing? It was great. And here? How did it go? There was a rough moment, but we got through it. What rough moment? They both started crying at the same time, and I didn't know what to do. But then I calmed down, and they did too. Ashley smiled. You did better than I expected. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Brian teased. Sorry, it's the first time I've left them with someone else for so long. I get it. Was it hard for you? At first, yes. I was worried for the first 30 minutes, but then I relaxed. What did you do? I went to the mall, bought some clothes for myself, got my hair done, had coffee alone while reading a magazine. Brian looked at her. She was visibly more relaxed and radiant. "You look great. The new haircut. Thank you." They carefully moved the babies to their crib. When they returned to the living room, Ashley sat beside Brian on the couch. "Brian, I want to thank you for this, for staying with them so I could go out." "Don't thank me. I'm their father." "Yes, but a lot of fathers wouldn't do this." "How do you know?" "Because I know plenty of single moms who never get a break because their kids' fathers don't care to help. I'm not like those fathers." "I know. I'm starting to see that." Brian turned to face her directly. "Ashley, I'm trying to show you I've changed, that I can be the husband and father you all deserve. Brian, give me a chance. A real chance." "What exactly are you asking?" "I'm asking for us to try again. Slowly, no rush, but to try rebuilding our family." Ashley was silent for a long moment. "Brian, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of believing in you again and getting hurt. I don't know if I could handle a second separation." "There won't be a second separation." "You can't promise that." "I can promise I'll fight to make sure it doesn't happen." "What if you start prioritizing work again?" "I won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because now I know what I missed the first time, and I know what truly matters in life." Ethan started whimpering in his crib. Ashley got up to see what was wrong, but Brian beat her to it. "Let me go." Brian picked Ethan up and quickly soothed him. When he returned to the living room, Ashley was watching him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "What is it?" "Nothing. It's just... seeing you take care of them reminds me of how I dreamed our life would be when they were born. And why can't it be like that now? It can, maybe it can." Brian moved closer to her on the couch. "Ashley, can I kiss you?" "Brian, please, just one kiss." Ashley looked into his eyes for a long moment before nodding. Brian leaned in and kissed her gently. It was a sweet kiss, full of longing and hope. When they pulled apart, Ashley rested her forehead against his. "I'd forgotten how good it feels to kiss you," she whispered. "And I'd forgotten how good it feels to be with you. Brian, let's try, but slowly, very slowly. Slowly is fine with me. And no living together for now. For now. And you need to prove you've really changed. I'll prove it every day." Noah woke up and started babbling in his crib. Brian and Ashley went to the nursery together and picked up both babies. "Look, boys, Daddy and Mommy are trying to be a family again," Ashley said softly. "Not trying, being. We already are a family," Brian corrected. And for the first time in 2 years, Brian felt whole again. The end of the story. So, dear listener, what did you think of this story of new beginnings and forgiveness? Do you believe Brian has truly changed and that they'll find happiness together? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most and if you've ever experienced something similar. Your opinion means so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.